With Agile, your title might be in jeopardy, but not your job. Today's 5 minutes short. Hi, I'm Joshua Barnes, and I'm joined by Al Shalloway. So, one of the things that we hear so frequently at organizations of really any size is, people questioning whether they're going to have their job any longer. And that's across the board. Sometimes we see that with operational managers, oftentimes we see it with project professionals, and it's just not the case. So, Al, why don't you give some thoughts on how things might change?
Yeah, well, the background for this is actually years ago. I remember going into a company, good sized company, well known company. I'm not going to name them, but I was there after they did an initial thing and they knew what I could do at scale. Weren't that many of us at that time. And they said something that really struck me as profound. They said, you may not have role security, but you have job security. And when you think about that, that's a good thing, because if somebody's a good person, I don't care if you move their role around or change their role. If they're a good person, they should be at your company. And if somebody's a bad person, they shouldn't be there. So whether they're there or not should not be determined by the role. I guess you could say, well, we're shifting roles and they don't have the skill for the new thing, but we all know you should hire for attitude, not for the specific skill anyway. So there excuse me, there might be some exceptions, but basically, people filling roles are not inherently good or inherently bad. You'd almost think that managers are inherently bad if you listen to a lot of the social media. And they slow agile, the permafrost, the this, the that. And my experience, I would say I started doing agile consciously, was before agile, but meaning do small amounts, risk mitigated discovery, was back in 99. I would say that there's just as much not moving forward due to the team as there is to middle management, as there are to executives, as there is to product management, as there is to the PMO. It is not a role thing that moves us forward or doesn't move us forward. Right. And that a lot of the resistance that people think is present is because they don't talk to them well. Having been called chickens for 10 or 15 years doesn't help either. So if you talk to people in a way that's going to set up resistance, it's not them, it's the way you set it up. The Agile Manifesto, as I've said many times, doesn't mention managers once. It's not a system thinking. It's a great manifesto, but it's not a systems thinking manifesto. It's not the whole thing. It was about a team being autonomous and self-organizing. And well, you don't maybe need a manager there. Just a good coach would do it. So we have to recognize things have changed. And if your organization is a bunch of people who've been like the Peter Principle or something, have been, moved up the chain beyond what they're capable of, well, you've got another problem. So move them into a place where they are capable, or if they're dead wood, get rid of them because they're dead wood, not because it's agile. Right. That's my point. What's happening now is we need new skills to work at scale, to get teams to coordinate, to look at the bigger picture, to create environments within which teams can work. And I think we might start seeing this idea that you can take teams and build them together like Lego blocks is so wrong. Anyway, it just is not the right design approach. Christopher Alexander talks about designs and holistically designing from the whole and how things relate to each other. And you don't get that when everything is cookie cutter and the same. And when you're talking about mid-scale, like 7,500 people, something like that, that's kind of small scale, I guess. But you don't need exact cross-functional teams. What you need is the collection working together, working with the teams and how they relate to each other. That's kind of a management problem, a different kind of management problem. We're no longer micromanaging, but somebody needs to step back and look at the picture of what's going on. And I don't know. I wouldn't call it a management of people. That's gone. I mean, it should be gone anyway. But a management of workflow, or rather a management of the environment within which workflow can take better. Having more experience to see what's needed and then coaching the team. That's a kind of management. Good management's doing that for hundreds of years. Hell, you can go back. I've been reading the Stoics, and I'm reading a lot of the Romans. Good managers were doing that back then. This is not a new concept. Command and control has been around for centuries, but good management of the system has been around as well. So
yeah, let's take an extra 30 seconds. So you mentioned management being called chickens or referred to as chickens. Give a little context for that so that everybody out there understands what that means.
well, when Scrum first started, they had this rule. Actually, it wasn't all of Scrum. It was kind of interesting. During the daily stand-up, only those people who are committed, meaning working toward it, were supposed to be at the daily stand-up. Now, we actually had a diversity of what that meant. Jeff Sutherland just meant, well, if you weren't actually doing the work, you weren't supposed to be at the daily stand-up, and he didn't assign a role to it. But Ken Schwaber thought, well, if you're a manager, you're not allowed at the daily stand-up because you're not working on the project and you're going to intimidate people. And he's had several comments that make me think he doesn't really like managers. So that was the whole chicken and pig story, which as soon as that came out, I hated it. I said, no. Managers are committed. They just maybe, or sometimes, as people are committed sometimes. The role isn't what has commitment or not. And to say that managers are not committed to what's going on is a mistake. Now, if you want to say only those people doing the work at the moment, that's different than saying committed. There's a big difference. A manager could be committed, and maybe you don't want managers there, but not because they're not committed, but because maybe you just want those who actually have their hands on. And then, by the way, why don't managers have their hands on? So that dichotomy of, well, a pig, the story, I should actually say the story. The story is this chicken and pig start talking, and this chicken tells the pig, he says, hey, I got this great idea. Let's go into the restaurant business, and we'll make ham and eggs. And the pig thinks about it, says, well, I don't know. Well, you'd be interested, I'd be committed. So this idea that you have your full skin in the game is not a role decision. So job security is if you've got skin in the game, regardless of what you're doing. And I think that's the key thing.
Right. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live, or if you're watching this on replay. If you have any questions, thoughts, please post on LinkedIn. And if not, we will see you on our next 5-minute short.